supposed to be up here.
Hey everybody, how's it going? So this event is going to be a little bit different than our other ones. I essentially invited everybody to be a speaker here. And what's really cool here is we have Eric Pinos from the Blockchain Education Network with us. And he's been at this for quite a long time, working with student organizations, helping with recruiting. He's been a huge asset to the industry and, has a lot of great insight on, how to approach recruiting. With COVID, everyone is kind of struggling together. And I think that this is going to be more of an open dialogue to sort of discuss how we can, assure our club's growth and sort of get people real opportunities in the space during this time. So we originally had a structure where it's going to be very, kind of structured, where everyone will have like 20 minutes each to talk. But I'd love to open this up more for just the community to ask questions. I still have, some things that I think are really important to mention. But yeah, Eric, do you mind introducing yourself to the people that might not know you?
Sure thing. So my name is Eric, and I'm the president of the Blockchain Education Network. So Blockchain Education Network was started 6 years ago in 2014, a network of blockchain universities. And it really started, the initial set of unis were the MIT Bitcoin Club, there was the Blockchain Club at University of Michigan, at University of Delaware, at Penn State, and at Stanford. So the idea was that you could have these Bitcoin clubs share resources with each other, share information. There was a Facebook chat, a messenger chat between the club leaders. There was a Google Drive that students could upload lessons to. Club leaders could upload content. They could upload good videos that they film with their clubs. It was all about sharing resources because there wasn't a lot of blockchain education online. Not a lot of people knew what this stuff was about. And it was very student-led, right? And then over time, more and more clubs started popping up all over the world that they've all started asking for the same content and resources and the same help. So, other Ben clubs kind of came in and helped them out, helped them get started, helped them grow. So that's been really cool to see the network grow so much and see so much student interest keep increasing year by year, even with the bear and bull cycles that we've had since then. So, all of our club leaders, the older ones mentor the newer ones, and then we have all these students that are part. And then Ben, like international, we try to also come in and help beyond just connecting club leaders to each other. We try to help with getting free tickets for events. We try to help with paying for Airbnbs, paying for flights to help students travel. We try to help matching students for job opportunities. And we maintain a knowledge base called the Ben Wiki, where all the club leaders and all the partners can upload all their content. And we also have leaders running national chapters around the world. So I see Ben Italy is in the chat. So hey, Ben Italy. But we have Ben Italy, Ben Turkey, Ben India, Ben Canada, Ben Australia. They're varying shapes and sizes, but it's all about bringing blockchain education to students in different countries. They help with translating the content. They help hosting events in different languages. So, blockchain is a global revolution, and there's so many different ways to be involved, both as a blockchain developer, as a blockchain entrepreneur, and then as a community leader. So very excited for any questions that anyone has in growing the communities on their local campuses.
Yeah, so everyone here, so actually, I'm going to briefly introduce everyone if that's cool with you guys. Alexis, he is the VP of Blockchain at UCSB. Anthony is going to be president of Blockchain at UCLA. Ishan is, I believe, vice president of Blockchain at Michigan. Is the vice president at BAF. And I see Scott Gilbert is in Margaret Valentine are in the attendees. They're from one's from She256. I don't know who Scott is, but everyone who's recently joining, I'm inviting everyone to the screen just so you can sort of ask questions in real time if you have any. This is going to be more of an open discussion than anything else. But I'd like to keep the topic relatively focused on recruiting during COVID, because although your clubs, a lot of clubs aren't meeting in person, but that does not mean we can't, continue collaborating and building cool things and running events together. And I think that now is actually even a better time than ever to get and entrepreneurs who are building real things, because one, they have the time, and two, they support what you're doing ultimately. So I think now is a great time to sort of get involved with other companies that you might not be involved with right now, And some good reasons why it's important to recruit right now is that one, it's super cost effective. It doesn't take much time. You don't need to buy pizza. You don't need to run these like, hour-long events. You don't need to do a lot of stuff. It's just a lot of sort of like day-to-day interaction with like a Slack group or Discord channel. And I think that's relatively straightforward. You just got to create one and sort of drive traffic there. And if you have the right people on board, just sort of try to engage the community as much as possible, share interesting articles. Baf and Ben have their Discord channels, and I think this is a great place if you're not willing to host your own to sort of push some of your community members to one of ours, just because it is a good place to kind of get connected with other people. Angela, I just invited you on screen. Feel free to turn on your mic and camera if you want to ask a question. And then other things is I think it's just a lot easier to recruit now as well. People are looking for something to do. They're stuck at home. They're students. They're focusing more on the channels that they used to rely on, like the digital ones. For example, Shoreline is one at UCSB. I'm not sure if other universities have the same thing, but it's essentially where all of the clubs, all the registered student organizations are. And at UCSB, apparently there's been a big uptick in people interested in becoming leaders of the club. And with that uptick, I think it's important to be selective of who you choose as a leader representing your club, because it really does, they're the face of it. You want to make sure that they know what they're talking about regarding blockchain, because it's really easy to sort of discredit not just your organization, but like you want to make sure that like the people involved in leading it know about it. It's a good time to sort of focus on educating your leader. And Ishan, I would actually love to hear, you guys are about to start a class, right? Or like a sort of internal education initiative for the leaders. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's actually for the general members. We're still working on something for leadership, but we're kind of hosting 2 educational tracks. One is going to be an 8-week, once per week, 90-minute discussion where on like the general blockchain narrative and also Solidity coding, just so that they can dip their feet into like the beginnings of blockchain. And that's what we use to get everyone up to speed. And then we're trying to host a level 2 education maybe once every other week, but haven't really thought about what that would look like. So some things we're considering doing is like diving into some of the Ethereum killers like Ava, not really Hyperledger, but that's a good one to talk about. Polkadot and what they're doing, more in depth into DeFi, and really, I think bringing that, if we're going to educate other people about those topics, we need to know about it, and kind of that's like motivation to do the research.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, especially like upcoming, like blockchain, as they say, is like one day, or yeah, like one day in blockchain is like a year in technology. Like things are happening so quickly in this industry that's sort of hard to keep up. So the way that BAF is trying to approach this, and it's very difficult, is with our weekly events. So with other organizations that might be listening, feel free to hit us up. What we like to do is we like to connect, give your clubs the opportunities to interview these companies, interview these people, because to be quite honest, like I don't really need these connections. PG doesn't need these connections anymore. Like we love curating them, but we love to give you the opportunity to connect with these companies, because they're hiring, they're looking to build things. I just think it's a great time to sort of get involved. So I even dropped this regarding recruiting, this document that is from Blockchain at Berkeley in the chat, and they have these info sessions. So regarding recruiting, I really think that Blockchain at Berkeley, they're kind of the standard in blockchain clubs around the world. And I think they do a great job, especially highlighting like the women in blockchain panel. I think it's really important. She256 will be here later to talk about how we can increase our efforts to get more women involved in our organizations. But the last sort of point I have for clubs to get involved to help with recruiting is work with other organizations. work with the other clubs on campus that probably are inactive right now as well. Yeah, feel free to turn on your mic, Killpit 2000.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question about having more women on board, and I think that having more women on board for equality is not a real good idea on the grounds that we are doing some sort of a business. And in a business, to keep it afloat and even better, you need to have highly qualified people. And that's the reason why I don't support these kinds of movements really. That women are equal man, equal woman, and that's positive. And that will be positive. That will lead to positive discrimination. Is another form of discrimination as well.
I think there's definitely a
I think it's some sort of a scam, some sort of an equality scam, like diversity scam or lowered expectations.
I can see that. I think fortunately there are very qualified women that can be found, and so it's not a matter of just putting diversity on, because you need a team that's going to be competent and able to lead it, and they actually care. But I think fortunately for everyone that there are enough people represented in that are qualified that can. So Atta is from Ben Turkey. I wanted to introduce the other people from Ben. We have Atta from Ben Turkey. There's Anka from the Drexel Blockchain Club, president of there, and we have a couple of other mutual overlap. We have Ben Italy here, so really exciting to see. Pierre Giacomo, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, you can say PG, Eric. It's fine.
PG. Okay, PG. PG from Ben Italy. So yeah, so really excited. As for Atta's question, Ben Turkey has women leaders too, so it's coming from a position of not that women aren't qualified, just that it's not the only factor to consider, and it's definitely not the main factor to consider, especially because when you're running a club, you need to have leaders that are going to step up and actually do it. If you put someone on just for the spotlight, and especially when you start to notice that some people just want to be a club leader or have a leadership position to brag, right, or to put it on their resume. And I saw this at the MIT Bitcoin Club a couple of times. People just come in and they want to volunteer or be a leader, but then once they get the jacket, once they get their name in the official list, once they have it on their LinkedIn, then you stop hearing from them, and they still have the leader title, so they can go around and they get all the credit, they get the job interviews, they get the foot in the door. So that's something to be cautious of.
There can be really dodgy.
Yeah,
there can be really dodgy people. Yeah.
So that's
I've seen lots of in the Istanbul University, and if you are talking about diversity and equality, we have to define them in such a way. And about diversity, are we talking about the diversity of thought, or about the diversity of gender, skin color, and race?
I think that
and with all those things,
and I only support the diversity of thoughts, by the way.
Yeah, so I actually think there will be a bigger blockchain, adoption and a lot better education if we're actually, addressing more people, and actually, to your point, getting people from different, race and ethnicity and genders to come and actually be part of these organizations. And I think it's up to us to actively make an effort to invite them and make a, very sort of inclusive environment for them, because it's going to result in better technology. I think it's going to result in better usage and actually addressing the problems that this technology is intended to, solve. So this is why it's important to, especially important to invite and make it a more inclusive environment for these people. So that is, I think She256 will probably, I think help address a lot of your concerns here. And we will, get back to that topic, absolutely. But I just wanted to emphasize regarding partnering with other organizations. There's a lot of other clubs on campus who aren't doing things right now. And they probably want to, they just don't know what to do. So reach out to your local fintech clubs, or your women in STEM clubs, or the video game clubs, or the economics clubs.
Okay, I'm just
and PG, do you want to say something?
Yeah. Just one very quick thing. Ishan next week is actually moderating a panel with people from Microsoft, and the topic will be royalties with Xbox. So in the gaming industry. So to the people here following up what Cameron is saying, maybe reaching out to the Gamers Club would be a good idea. Also, these clubs are big because, I mean, especially now in quarantine, a lot of people, are playing video games. So I think that's a great call to action for next week on Thursday.
When the MIT Bitcoin Club really trying to figure out how to keep it growing, especially when it was stagnating a little bit, we found it easiest, which I was the president of the MIT Bitcoin Club, by the way. I didn't mention that, but that was where I came into Ben. Was first I was the club leader of my local Ben chapter, and then I eventually worked my way up, became president of the network. But when we were trying to do events, we found it very easy to partner up with the, we partnered with traders at MIT and we did a crypto trading night. We partnered with VR at MIT and we brought in Decentraland to speak about blockchain and virtual reality. And we partnered with the MIT Energy Club, and then we had a session about blockchain and energy. So with every different, every different type of blockchain event, because blockchain is just a tool, and that's what we've noticed. A lot of students that come and join the network, there's very few of us that are just like, okay, I love all of blockchain and whatever blockchain can do, let's figure that out. I think a lot of people are still either computer scientists or they're lawyers or they're working in energy or they're studying for healthcare, and blockchain is really applicable to their field. So they just want to learn a bit about blockchain. They want to learn how blockchain is good for them, but they're not going to be 100% full-time blockchain. So it's important to have those diversity of events, and also it makes it easier to organize, because then you're co-organizing with other clubs. You don't have to worry as much about organizing it all from scratch. And I think going into the fall, as Cameron mentioned, I'm sure all of the other clubs are also thinking about what they can do online. And it's going to become very overwhelming for students to just be getting thousands of, or hundreds of club newsletters like saying, oh, join our online event, join on our online event. I mean, I've been getting all these emails for all of the online blockchain conferences that have been happening over the summer, and I'm kind of tired of it. It's just like hopping in and it's the same thing like over and over again. So I think it's very important for clubs to consider partnering up with other clubs to reduce the number of overall events and to just increase the quality of the events that are happening. Like if you know that on one night the fintech club on your campus is going to be hosting a live stream, why host a competing live stream and now you have the students split between the two, and just partner with them and host one live stream and have everyone on the one live stream, and you'll have a much better conversation. So I think definitely we all need to think about the synergies and how we can partner up so that we have as big of a community as possible and reduce the amount of complexity as possible.
I love it. And that being said, I'd love to run more events with the Blockchain Education Network. I mean, like, this is exactly sort of like, we both do very similar things. This is, I think we should just all, work together and sort of pushing this technology forward. And having very clear call to actions for other orgs, I think is great. So running events could just be one thing, but, I think other things that, your members might be interested in is, running maybe focus groups for certain protocols to, work on, like, do testnet stuff, run through certain documentation together. You can build, Bitcoin has these fantastic bounties. So if your club has, if it's primarily composed of computer scientists, it's a great way to sort of give them something tangible to work on. Say, hey, let's work on this bounty together, and you get paid, and it's really cool. So Gitcoin bounties is really neat if you haven't checked that out. There's also a lot of fantastic hackathons going on. There's the Near is hosting Hack the Rainbow. That's a cool hackathon, and as well as Chainlink has one as well. I'll drop the links in the chat shortly. And then now is also a great time to build relationships, although they might not be as interpersonal as in person, but with professors and advisors on campus. Get them to come to your events. Get them to come. If you're building a project and have a call with the project team, like, invite them. There's a good chance that they'll probably hop on. People like to support students, so leverage this. And then regarding running an online, yeah, thank you. And then running an online event, it's not going back to what Eric said. I think the biggest issue here would be time zones for people. So it would be great to have a lot of coordination on specific time zones for certain events. So this is sort of what BAF has been sort of promoting for the last couple of months, especially through COVID. And we'd love to continue doing this. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want to get in contact with a specific company. I loved Eric's point around, running a blockchain and gaming event with Decentraland. Like, and if you don't know Decentraland and you're comfortable reaching out, well, one, cold email them. And if they don't get back to you, then hit up Eric or I, and we can probably make an introduction to people. So I think there's a lot of stuff that you can do despite COVID. And it's just really up to you to. And regarding recruiting specifically, I think it's key to leverage the resources that you have. So a lot of schools, you can email almost every student in your department if you ask the department head, like, leverage this. At UCSB, I know we ran a big conference last year. We sent an email to every single student and faculty on campus and like paid a fee for it. Like, that was how most of our members came and learned about the organization and learned about the conference. So like, leverage these tools. It's really important. And I'm also just going to drop some of the links that I mentioned, specifically the BAF membership, the Hack the Rainbow Hackathon, which is from NEAR, and then Chainlink's Hackathon. These are all coming up, and highly recommend you get involved. But Eric, I'd love to hear or does anyone have any questions, better yet, or things they want to discuss?
Okay, I also dropped in the link around, so blockchainedu.org/events is a student curated list of events that are coming up, including events that we're partnered with and get free tickets for. So, right now it's not as applicable because I think most people doing online events are for free, but especially once these conferences start coming up and these hackathons start coming up, don't pay for the tickets, don't pay for the $200, $300 that they charge. They charge $200, $300, $1,000, $2,000. Check out Ben first, see if we have free tickets from them. If we don't, let us know and we will go and get those free tickets, because students should not be paying for tickets right now. Students are the most valuable asset that a conference can have, because at the end of the day, sponsors sponsor a conference for two things. They want new users and they want new employees, or they want ecosystem building. So students definitely don't undermine your own value that you have to the conference, or that you bring to the table. So definitely check that list out, see if there's events on there. We have a couple of the lists that Cameron mentioned, but the ones that we don't have on there, definitely go through the BAF network and check those out as well too. So that's something I really want to highlight, is that there's a lot of resources available to you from both of these networks, and then all of the other networks. Like, I think the Midwest Blockchain Consortium is a really good network if you're in the Midwest. Like, I think you have to leverage these resources, and not just logistical resources and educational resources, but also the alumni network. I think it's one of the most strongest things that we have to offer, is that when you're a club and you're competing against other clubs, a student can only be a part of so many clubs when they're on campus. And if it's a choice between, the business club, the entrepreneurship club, or the blockchain club, at the end of the day, most people are going to think, well, which one's going to help me get set up with a career? I need to make sure, I can't just play around. Like, I need to make sure that my job is secure. And so a student might be tempted to pick the finance club or the traders club or the entrepreneurship club, because those might have a more established history. What they don't realize is that, by joining the blockchain club, you have access to all of Ben's alumni network, you have access to all of BAF's alumni network, and we could pretty much introduce you to anyone in the industry that you would want to meet. And most of them are alumni of the network. So I think that's an important thing. Like, I've had students that have told me, like, hey, I'm applying for a job at the Ethereum Foundation, but I never, heard back. And I'm like, we have like Ben alum that work there and run it, right? So we could just introduce you. Or Harmony. It's like, I applied to Harmony and they kind of responded, but they didn't respond. I want to get a job interview there. I'm just going to keep you updated. I'm like, the founder is a Ben alum, Sahil Dewan. He was president of the Harvard Blockchain Club, the Harvard Business School Blockchain Club. Like, he's in the chat, just like message him. So people don't realize just how well connected our networks are. And you definitely want to take advantage of that, because it gets your foot in the door. And going through the online application process, there's hundreds of applicants, there's dozens of applicants, and you really want to stand out. And I feel like this space is very small, so people operate a lot on trust. they'll go for when building out their teams for their projects and for the companies and when considering hiring. One of the biggest things is like, what are your references and who referred you? And I noticed this like working at Ontology, like we will have multiple applicants that will try to apply to join, you know, our company. And we always look for referrals, and we look at like, where has this person worked before and who referred this person? Like, can we trust this referral? Especially because we're hiring worldwide. So you don't always get to meet them in person. You don't always get to bring them in for a physical interview. So we rely a lot on, are they a part of a trusted network, right? Like, have they previously worked at one of our partners organizations? Like, how can we trust this person? So it's very important to associate yourself with existing brands in the space. At least that's how the blockchain space works. I know that other industries are kind of different. Like other industries, it's just heads down, study as hard as you can. You publish some body of work, and then you use that to get hired. Others, like you just have to go through the funnel of like, you know, bottom 90% get cut out, and then only the top percent even make it to like being. So, but blockchain space is very small. So just knowing people. I met Ontology by going to a blockchain conference, getting the free tickets through Ben. I was a student, and going to a VIP party that I wasn't allowed to go to, and then I just stepped over the rope, like the red rope thing that they put in when the bouncer wasn't looking. You just kind of go over it. Now I'm inside mingling with CEOs, like, and then everyone's so boring because everyone's just like, oh, CEO stuff, and I'm here like I just snuck in, and so I've snuck in. I'm here with Ben. I was in an Airbnb with 30 other Ben students. Like I slept on the floor to be here. They paid for me, but I had to sleep on the floor. And so everyone loved that story. They were like, wow, that's like the coolest story I heard tonight. And that got me the interview. And then they flew me to China. And so then I got the job. So it's all about that, right? It's about the connections. It's about the excitement. It's about showing that you're willing to go the extra mile to put yourself in front of these people. And, you guys.
And not being a dodgy person.
Exactly. So you guys yourselves at clubs, as club leaders, you apply this in your own life so that you can get the job positions in the blockchain space that you want, but also articulate that to your students, that they have these resources. They might not know that, and they might not be aware of that. So that's very important.
Yeah, we do our best as much as we can.
Yeah.
But we don't want to take chances, really. In Turkey, yeah.
Well, you got to take chances in this industry. That's like kind of cold email people, cold LinkedIn message them. Like they're all on Twitter, DM them. It actually works.
Yeah, especially about the people we try to choose in Turkey. Yeah, can't take chances literally.
Leaders, or
and especially around my chaps, I'm known as the guy who literally doesn't take chances when it comes to people.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That's you're gonna definitely
for safety reasons, by the way, in Turkey, it's literally a nightmare.
I think we've seen there's a lot of scams in Turkey. So in my calls with
Turkey is a scam. Yeah, Turkey is filled with literally scams.
Yeah.
Lots of people who can stab you out the back.
Which is why I think it's
really how it happened. Yeah, thank God I managed to protect myself against these kinds of scams or against these kinds of people by fighting back when needed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or sensing something from miles away due to how I became raised and my own martial arts training. Especially I trained the secrecy.
Yeah, so
for 3 years, so
real
that's
quick.
why
So
that was really
we're gonna have She256 come on soon. I think that's why it's so important to have a trusted network of Ben and BAF and these different organizations, is because there is so many scams, and it's important to rely on people who you do verify as legitimate. So I think that this is why it's so important to recruit properly as well. So having a robust process is key. So sort of touching back on the point of recruitment, I think having some education series is ideal, and not being hesitant to have sort of high standards of who you allow on leadership and also members. The education should be public, but I think the sort of day-to-day education, or I guess the leadership education, should be a little bit more a high bar set for that. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, does anyone else here have any kind of advice on education in the beginning moments of a club's existence, especially for onboarding new members and leaders?
I think there are two main routes that you can take with this. The first is kind of developing your own curriculum, and that's what Blockchain at Michigan did. We have some really talented people, and if you know your stuff, then you can definitely take from online resources. Some good online resources actually include blockchain at blockchain education networks wiki, and also blockchain at Berkeley has some two EDX courses, which I would highly recommend checking out. So you don't even really need to create any of your own content. You can just pull from those three places and it'll get you to where you need to be. And the second is actually, Bath might help with this, but if you have a formal class at your school, then you can use that as a filtration mechanism and say you have to take these classes, and then you can join. That's what Blockchain at Berkeley does. So I think between those two, you could find something.
Definitely 100% don't need to make your own content. All of the older clubs have already made all this content. We went through all the pain of making Blockchain 101, making Bitcoin 101, and putting it up there. It's all online. And for the most part, like, I think unless you're dealing with an official classes curriculum, which now there's official accredited courses and professors have been making content, most of the club leaders that we know have made their content public and open for anyone to teach from and to use. You can go so far as to like modify for their own needs. So, you know, you can find it. You can find it on the Ben Wiki. Like we have Blockchain at Berkeley's content linked to there by category as well. So as long as with, you know, the other clubs, and then some lessons and content and slides translated into different languages. And I think one of the important things is that we try to get a lot of teacher content. So, you know, not so much if you go to Blockchain 101, it's like, yeah, there's some lessons for you to learn about blockchain yourself, but it's more so oriented towards club leaders and teachers. Like this is your teaching plan. So this is tools that you can use to teach blockchain to a class. So, you know, go through these slides, show this video first, send out this pre-reading, you know, send out this post-reading, recommend these books. So, and it's all based off of what previous club leaders have done because they're the ones that are uploading the content. And then if it's in different languages, you know, you can look at it in different languages as well. So definitely look at what club leaders have made before and see what already exists and try to build off of what already exists, because that's going to save you time. And that's, you know, ultimately it brings new life into content that already is out there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I love it. Do you mind dropping the Ben Wiki in the chat? I think that'd be a great resource.
Sure thing.
For participants.
It's learn.blockchainedu.org, and I'm also gonna just drop it in.
Nice. And regarding,
sorry, just that the wiki is public and open for anyone to see and edit, right? So even if you know, students, you can create an account to like go ahead and start adding content, but anyone is allowed to add content and update content. And what was mentioned before with the scams list, you know, we also upkeep a couple of other cool resources. We have a scams watch list where anytime someone encounters a scam, they can add it to that list. And, you know, if you're a newcomer and you don't know and you want to make sure you don't get scammed, you could go to that list on the Ben Wiki and then see like, oh, here are the other scams that have been happening. Just kind of watch out for yourself. So these are cool, like community or like student run lists. There's another list on academic papers published by professors and club leaders and students. So anyone can go and add their own paper up there. And that's all student run because anyone could go and create accounts in the wiki and start adding content. So that's an exciting piece of it. It's not just Ben up here sitting like, oh, here's the stuff for you to learn. It's just very community run.
I love it. One of the just, you know, working with a lot of clubs and running the one at UCSB for a little bit was I learned the best when I had to teach. So what I recommend is all your leaders to have to teach a workshop. Because it forces them, you know, there's no better, I guess, incentive of you embarrassing yourself in front of a lot of your peers if you don't know what you're talking about. So I highly recommend everyone, you know, taking the opportunity to, you have all these amazing people with that are interested in learning, find the thing that interests you most about the crypto world, and host a lesson about it. I think it'd be a great way to engage your members, and also for you to get good experience just in front of people. And what else? I think Eric, I may have sent a couple topics in the email I sent earlier. I think internships. Do you know any companies hiring right now? And would you recommend, I guess, what sort of advice would you recommend students who are sort of interested in taking on a part-time role during their quarantine?
Well, I think the best list of companies that are hiring right now, there's two that I've found, is jobs.co, and then there's also cryptojobslist.com. Those I can put those links in as well, but I think that's a good starting point, because it is difficult to know like who exactly is hiring, because those change all the time, and a lot of companies don't even update their own website with those positions. They just tweet it out. They tweet it out once, and then we try to retweet it to give it more exposure and let our students know. Sometimes we post it in the chat. Sometimes they post it in our Discord, like these are new job opportunities. But it all goes so fast that honestly, like, it's more about what company you want to work at, and then seeing if there's any positions available for that company. And if you have no idea where to start, then yeah, those resources that I mentioned earlier, which I'll put those links in, those are good to reach out to. But once you have a company that you're like, okay, this is my list, this is my hit list, then reach out to the other clubs, post in the Ben Discord, post in the BAF Discord, ask if anyone knows anyone there that you can get an introduction to. Ideally, if the conferences were happening, we'd be at the conference and you could go to their booth and you could talk to them at their booth, or we could connect you in person. But right now everything is online based. So what we can do is we can introduce you in email threads, or tag everyone in the Discord, tag everyone in the chats, and just introduce people that way.
Yep. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat. One of our members from the Rochester Institute of Technology recently just started, or actually he's been working there for a little while, but the Foundry, it's a company out of the, find it real quick. It's a super legit company. It's from the Digital Currency Initiative. They are hiring a bunch of people right now. Highly recommend checking them out. And yeah, BAF has a sort of a jobs tab. So I frequently update this with, jobs. So if you're at all interested, in order to get access to our Discord, you have to become a member of BAF, which is by taking the BAF membership application. And this is also how we identify like what you're looking for and how you want to, like what kind of events you want to see, and also research opportunities, because there's a lot of professors who come to us as well asking, hey, do you know anyone that has like, distributed systems experience, or, has experience analyzing, token economic systems. And we connect people to research opportunities within our network. So that is one of the benefits of filling out the membership application. And the reason why we have to sort of close this off is because we want to ensure quality. And this is how we, make sure that people, Meta's here. Hey, Meta. I'd love to introduce Meta from She256. She will be giving a presentation about how to increase more diversity in your student organizations. And hey, Margaret, how are you?
I'll also be speaking with Meta.
So all right.
Turn it on.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can.
Okay,
great.
Cool. We're super excited. Me and Maggie have a presentation as well, but it's supposed to be a super casual conversation. So feel free to chime in whenever you want. Can you see the slides?
Yeah, actually, if everyone else in the chat can turn off their cameras while they present, that'd be great. So this slide can be bigger.
Okay, wait, so do you guys see this? Like the first slide?
I see it super tiny, but
Eric, do you mind turning off your video?
Okay, no worries. We can also send this out afterwards as well. Cool. Why don't we get started with introduction? Maggie, did you want to go first?
Oh wait, what did someone just say? Okay. Well, yeah, if you guys want to do it better, you can click full screen. Okay, cool.
Wait, are other people talking? I don't hear other people except for you, Maggie.
No, it's currently just us.
Okay,
We're
cool.
just gonna
All right, sorry, I'm like new to this platform, but yeah, Maggie, did you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm Maggie. I graduated from Berkeley in May, where I studied econ and design innovation. I was heavily involved in blockchain at Berkeley, and I helped found the design department within the organization. I'm also the lead designer for She256 and have been since 2018. And I'm currently doing a product design internship at C Labs this summer.
Cool, yeah, and I'm Meta, so I met Maggie at Blockchain at Berkeley as well. We both just graduated from Cal. I also work at C Labs. I'm a full-time software engineer there, working on the Celo protocol. So if you have questions about that afterwards, like feel free to hit me up. But today, mainly, we're going to be focusing on She256 and specifically like incorporating diversity into the recruitment pipeline when you guys are recruiting your new recruits this August, and also why that's important. And we really want to make it so that you have tangible takeaways. Like, everyone cares about diversity, I would hope. But I think a lot of times it's hard to know like what exactly you can do and really implement right now to increase the top of the funnel in your pipeline and also make your club more inclusive. And also just wanted to let you guys know that, we're totally in the same boat. Like, we were both heavily involved in blockchain at Berkeley. We're really involved in the recruitment processes for the last 3 years. Like, we've been through it. So wanted to kind of like reassure you guys, like, in trying to make this as relatable as possible. And we'll definitely leave time at the end for questions and kind of a conversation in case you guys wanted to bring up maybe recruiting strategies that you guys are thinking through and wanted to get advice on it.
Yeah, cool. So just to kind of like kick us off, we're She256, like we said. We're an official 501c3 nonprofit that aims to increase diversity in the blockchain space by breaking down barriers to entry. Fun fact is we started as like a one-time conference in 2018 where we just highlighted what women in the blockchain space were doing. But we kind of expanded and are still here today because we realized there was a lot of work to be done. Next slide, Meta. So this like fundamental thesis kind of explains why we do the work that we do. And this thesis is that we fundamentally believe that the blockchain industry is going to shape our future financial and governance structures. And because of this, we think it's really important to make sure that the people building these systems are representative of the population that they're intended to serve. So our initiatives span within like 3 different categories, I'd say. So we have like community aspect, education, and mentorship. One of our initiatives is the Fireside Chats, which is a Medium post that kind of feature women that are doing really cool shit in the space. And they're like interview formats. They're super cool. So I highly suggest you guys check them out. We also have a mentorship program, which pairs female identifying individuals with professionals in the space. And we currently have over 500 participants in 35 different countries, which is awesome. There's also something called Blockchain, which is kind of this like lecture module series created by one of our members that were presented to high schoolers within the Bay Area and hopefully can be distributed to many more in the future. We also hosted an awesome design-a-thon, which was one of my favorite events. And we basically had like middle schoolers and high schoolers come into the eBay headquarters in San Jose. And we taught them about blockchain, taught them how to use Figma. And by the end of the day, they were presenting prototypes to us and like pitching their ideas. And it was really cool to see kind of how quickly like the younger generation like ate this information up and just went running with it. So that was such a cool event. And then we are also currently doing something called the Future Blockchain Study, which we can send you guys after. I encourage everyone to fill this out. But it's basically just a survey that we're trying to capture the current state of diversity in the crypto space because there's basically no data or information on what that looks like today. And we want to use this data-driven approach to kind of like identify problem spaces and clear like approaches that we can take to like move forward and tackle the issue of diversity in the space. So yeah, like before we start this conversation, I think it's important to distinguish between what diversity and inclusion are. So diversity is like the variation in physical, personal, and social characteristics such as gender, ethnicity, age, and education. So that was kind of like tied in previously to what someone was saying about diversity of thought. Like we also think that's super important. And then the other side of this is inclusion. And this kind of refers to the procedures that organizations implement to integrate everyone in the workplace and allowing these like differences and diverse backgrounds coexist in a mutually beneficial way. Next slide. And then like, why is D&I relevant to club recruiting? I think it's especially relevant to club recruiting in the blockchain space, because I think Meta and I can also speak to this. Like our experience and also other coworkers that I've met with like similar age and backgrounds is like most of them got funneled into where they are today from their blockchain club at their respective universities. And because of this, like we can make the industry even more diverse by discussing this issue at this level. So yeah, I think the goal is to just tackle at this earlier stage because it eventually funnels into shaping like the professional landscape of the blockchain industry. And then also like Meta will dive into these action items, but I think it's just good to like think about how diversity and inclusion falls within recruiting, like through this framework. That being that diversity like ties really heavily into this like pre-joining stage of a club. So this involves like thinking about how a recruitment and application process is framed, like what type of people are you attracting to apply to your club to begin with. And I think the goal here is like increasing the top of the funnel. And the other side of this is inclusion. And this side more so relates to kind of like, once you have these people, like what does their retention rate look like? What type of culture are you cultivating within your organization? And I think like, it's also really important to think of this about like socially and also like what type of learning environments are you creating? So thinking about like that double-edged sword is important.
Cool. Thank you so much, Maggie. So that was like a great introduction into kind of what we're talking about and why diversity and inclusion is important in recruiting. And now comes like the second half of the talk, which is tangible actions that you can take to think about it. So I think Maggie gave a great framework in terms of dividing it into like, you know, the recruiting stage and then the post-recruiting stage once they're in the company or in your organization, and how to make an inclusive culture. So first, let's tackle diversity. So one big question that I think is important to think about is what kind of positions are you recruiting for? I think usually when people hear about blockchain and crypto, they think it's super highly technical, which it is, and just assume that you have to be like a programmer or like a CS major to be able to kind of be involved and understand anything, which is just not the case, right? Like all of you guys are in the space now, you realize that it's beautifully interdisciplinary. There are so many different aspects of the space that you can kind of, you can find your niche anywhere and any of your skills will apply. For example, like if we imagine that block future of our like governance structures, we need people with like political, economic, poli-sci backgrounds to be able to like articulate those views and talk to governments in terms of like how we can incorporate blockchain technology into their governance structures. If we think of finance, obviously like we need people involved in like CeFi, like traditional finance, to kind of like translate what's happening in DeFi. There's also like beautiful things happening with like crypto and art. If you guys have heard of With Foundation, they're doing stuff around that. And so clearly you can get involved in the crypto space regardless of, you know, what your major is. And I think it's important to emphasize that. I'm sure like every organization is different, but I know from my experience at our university, like it was very like tech heavy, but it was nice that we had a lot of different departments where you didn't have to just be a coder. You could be a business major, you could, you know, go into design, you could go into more operational stuff. And I think that sort of exposure is important. Another thing is kind of thinking about recruiting for diversity of experience and diversity of thought. This kind of goes back into like what backgrounds and what networks are they bringing into your organization? Like, are they your classic, again, like tech people that are involved in like maybe like the computer science clubs or the consulting clubs, or are they people that are kind of more like radical out there, like maybe they're thinking about like philosophy and all of that. And I think it's interesting to see a lot of those type of people like mix in with like the traditional tech crowd and, you know, create a beautiful culture, because so much of the blockchain space is built on principle and like the cypherpunk movement and all of that. So I think having different backgrounds makes a lot of sense. The next kind of point to think about is how are you marketing? Like I said, I feel like everyone cares a lot about diversity these days, which is awesome. But I think it's also really easy to almost fall into the trap of hosting like a women in XYZ organization like panel type of event, which is not a bad event at all. I think those are great. I think they really speak to like all the women's experiences in the organization you're in. But what I think a lot of people don't realize is that if there's a certain demographic that's kind of missing the information about your recruiting process, or if they're missing information about like how inclusive your culture is, or maybe they feel uncomfortable applying in the first place, having a women in XYZ organization type panel event isn't going to change that, if that makes sense. So I think you guys should really get together with your recruiting teams and really think about a strong marketing strategy and how you can target like the demographics that you want to see more of in your org. So from what I've noticed, like a lot of colleges publicly publish their demographic and major data. So you can see majors where a lot of your target community is located, and you can push extra hard to get people from those majors in by going to like classes, by going to their mailing list, and maybe reaching out of the traditional CS tech entrepreneurship bubbles and kind of going into more of those. Um, Also, I think it's super important to take a targeted approach in terms of other orgs on campus. Again, I don't know about other campuses, but in Cal at least, student orgs are a huge part of your campus life and basically make your social experience. So it's important to reach out to a lot of like different organizations that you don't usually like tend to recruit from, but they carry a lot of like the target demographics that you're trying to get. Three, the next one is how are you assessing applications? So I think a lot of times when we were looking at applications, like we would get like, thousands of applications every semester and would have to like eventually just get down to like comparing resumes, right? But it's not that simple. You can't just say like, oh, this resume is objectively better than this resume or things like that. I think you really have to ask the question like, based on the resources that this person was given and had exposure to, like what did they do, like how did they utilize those resources, right? So I think taking each application in the context of that application is really important, and not just to like compare lines on a resume. I think it's important to get a holistic approach on background, where people are coming from, whether they had access to the same resources as maybe other applications. And I want to stress that this does not mean lowering the bar at all. Actually, it just kind of gives people an equal footing because you look at like what they were disposed to, basically. Another thing I like to look at it when looking at applications is also potential, right? Like we're all in college, like we have no idea what the next like 10, 20 years of our life will look like. But if you kind of ask specific behavioral questions that really dig deep into what the person is passionate about and what their potential is in the blockchain space, even if they don't have a lot of experience in it, I think that is super, super helpful as well. The next point is around the structure of your club events and recruiting. So for blockchain at Berkeley, at least I can speak to that. It was pretty competitive. There's always like hundreds or thousands of applications, and then you kind of just keep filtering. And by the end, you have around 20 to 50 people in a semester in one class. So it's pretty like exclusive, I would say. But we do have quite a lot of public events that we host, like meetups and things like that. Now they're webinars because of COVID, but before they were in person and people all around like the Bay Area could come to them. We also had a presence at like larger conferences like SFBW and things like that. So I think it's important to figure out what your community's balance is. Like, do you accept everyone who's interested, or do you have an application process? If you do have an application process, are you open to maybe having more public events so that even people outside of your exclusive community can kind of still be involved? Are there ways that you let people contribute to your open source projects, things like that? And I think having those conversations and maybe talking to other org presidents would really help with that. The last thing around this point is, how do you deal with rejected applicants? I think this specific part is really interesting because I think most people, when you like reject applicants, you don't really think about them again. But I think what you don't realize is that they can still be part of your next semester's or next year's pipeline, and you want them to have a really good experience. I heard a quote the other day from a recruiter that I'm close to. She had a great take on this. She said, your recruiting process should be so good that people you reject should still refer their friends to interview with you. like imagine, like even though like, you know, you would imagine they'd be salty that you rejected them, they're still like so happy with their experience and with the culture that they saw for a little bit, that they still think other people should work for you guys or be a part of your organization. So I think that's something to think about. Another thing you can do is like still set them up for a path to success in the future. Like, how do you, like, what, maybe where did they fall short? Like, you can give them some feedback, or you can say like, hey, we want you to learn a bit more about the blockchain space in this, and this realm, and give them resources. A great thing would be just to like, you know, show them to She256. They can join our Slack. We can give them a bunch of resources. We can match them with a mentor in the industry and maybe set them up for success there. Now we're kind of going into the second half of what Maggie was talking about. So once people are already in your organizations, how do you think about D&I in terms of the inclusion aspect? So the first point here is to create a comfortable learning environment, right? Like even once they're in the org, they're constantly learning. The space is changing every single day. I feel like I hear about a new company or a project or a new niche like almost every week, right? So everyone's constantly learning, but if you don't feel comfortable asking dumb questions, or you feel like everyone kind of expects you to be an expert, it might not be conducive for people to feel comfortable and, you know, actually learn by like asking questions and doing things like that. So I think figuring out how you're relaying knowledge to people and also assuming knowledge of people is really important to keep in mind. The next is kind of something I touched on before, but diversity of departments. Like, make sure that, you know, not every department is just like an open source research project where you kind of have to know how to code or, you know, do intense cryptography or math to be able to contribute. Make it so that you can, you know, you can do anything you want, but still be involved in the organization and still continue to learn. And it's important to also value them equally, right? Like, there's no reason that like for example, the business department and the design department and the like programmers and the researcher, they're not all equal. They're all like contributing to the blockchain space in like the way that they can. So I think making sure that people feel like that is a core part of your organization's mission is also important. The last bit here is, you know, you're clearly in a community where you get to talk to a bunch of other org presidents from people all around the world. So I think it's really important to share these insights with other club leaders. And I think the best place to start is truly by having an open conversation. I think a lot of the problems in D&I right now are that they're very siloed. Like everyone wants to do something, but I feel like people keep reinventing the wheel and they're kind of developing their own strategies in-house. But you could also just talk to each other and figure out what works best for you and what works best for like a different org, and see if you can kind of transfer and adopt ideas across the board. Cool. So that was like the main part of our presentation. And I know we're just short on time now, but I'd love to like open it up and see. I'll stop presenting, but I want to see if you guys specifically had like questions or things you wanted to run by us, or even just questions you had about ourselves. Sorry, I'm like, I have so many tabs.
Yeah, feel free just to turn on, if you do have a question, just turn on your mic and video and you can ask.
Okay, cool. Sorry, you guys just saw like all of my desktop. My God.
Hey, Maida. Thank you guys so much for the awesome presentation. Definitely learned a lot. This question's more for you, Margaret. Could you tell us more about the design work at blockchain at Berkeley? I'd love to get designers involved at blockchain at Michigan, but not quite sure how.
Yeah. So it was interesting because I feel like
Wait, Maggie, I think you're muted. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was interesting because I was recruited in kind of the first round of designers, and initially we kind of were more so just like making marketing materials, like recruitment banners, Facebook events, things like that. But once me and like another designer kind of decided to found this design department, we shifted to doing more so like a product-based design. So like at least within blockchain at Berkeley, there's internal projects and external projects where people are making prototypes to kind of prove their concept. But there was really lacking like a design eye within these prototypes. So we typically would just come in and create a prototype in Figma and have people demo those. But I think like this just speaks to the point of how much value like people that don't technically have like that classic technical background can bring. And I think it like really created a difference in just people's presentations of the work that they were doing.
so much, Maggie. That was awesome.
No problem.
And I guess another slightly related question, but one thing we've noted, one thing you guys talked about is you don't want people to be afraid to speak up, and uh, I'm not sure how to like make it a more friendly and inclusive environment. I've tried, but not quite sure. What are your thoughts on best strategies to make it a friendly, inclusive environment?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things you can do here, and I'm sorry, I think I have like a little bit of a lag, so let me know if I'm like cutting people off. But Maggie can speak to this too, and feel free to chime in. But I know for like blockchain at Berkeley, for example, we had a lot of socials. Like currently, like I just graduated, and the people I'm living with right now are friends that I made at blockchain at Berkeley. So I think even going beyond like the reason why you joined the org, I think it's important to just, you guys are all college students, like you guys are all friends more than anything, and to emphasize that like not everything you do has to be about blockchain and productivity and like building projects and things like that. I think the best way you can even work together as an org is to be friends with each other. So doing things like that. I know for us we had like basically like the leadership was called exec, so we had an exec board of maybe 10 to 12 people, and then the rest of the organization, and the exec board would be really tight as well. Like we would go to like dinners together, and like meet every week before like meetings and things like that. So I think it's important to go beyond and just be social as well. Like I think college organizations are great because they're in this perfect middle where you can be super productive in terms of really starting your career. Like I owe blockchain at Berkeley everything. Like they're the reason why I'm in the space. They're the reason why I got to start She256. They're the reason why I got my internship at Cello and met all my friends and all of these things. So I was like super productive in that sense, but it was also a great place where I just like met my friends and had a good time and felt like I could learn and be excited about things and geek out with other people my age. So I think yeah, I guess that's like something to think about. But if you had something specific you wanted to ask about, I'm also happy to like give advice on that as well.
I also think that as like leaders of organizations, it's important to show that you also have questions. Like you also don't know everything, and kind of like setting that precedent, I think makes the other members like feel super comfortable following suit. So yeah.
Perfect.
Wait, yeah, I definitely want to, sorry, what were you saying?
No, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like I definitely want to +1 that. I remember when I first joined the organization my sophomore year, I felt super intimidated because everyone around me I felt like they just knew everything. Like they were literally like dropping out of school, starting their own companies, like already working in the space, basically weren't even students. I was like, what is going on? And I felt really intimidated. And honestly, it took me like at least a year or so to kind of feel like I could kind of contribute. So maybe if you can start that process earlier and learn with people that you're leading, not just teaching them, that could be helpful as well.
I love it. Now, one thing, we are close on time, but to be honest, this is super, casual. So if anyone else, just if you need to go, go. If you don't need to go, stick around. But one works really well is in order to attract more women, and especially into our organizations, run events that sort of are, I guess, more curated towards their interests. So I've noticed that there's a lot more interest in like social impact and healthcare regarding. So like if you're trying to get more women in your clubs, like run an event around blockchain and social impact. I think that will bring more people to the table. Also, yeah, like blockchain applications in healthcare and making it very like use case focused rather than theoretical, and something that they can absolutely relate to. That's one thing that like I've noticed that works. I mean, it might not work across all these different schools, but it's worked in my experience.
Yeah,
but,
I think I think that goes to the whole like diversity of background and like the whole majors thing I was talking about. I like agree. I think especially if you do things across the board, I think a lot of people would kind of realize that, blockchain isn't just like Bitcoin, it's not just speculative trading, it's not just like payments, it's so much more than that. And so like anyone can get involved. Like there's no reason like, I don't know, like a fashion student shouldn't care about blockchain and fashion or blockchain and supply chain or things like that, right? That was just a random example, but you can truly find an application anywhere. And I think it's important to emphasize that.
Love it. So there are some questions in the Q&A. Eric, did you want to address some of them?
Oh.
Yeah, so the main the question that Ishan brought up, I think is a good topic, is how do you actually grow the actual Slack or the actual Discord or the WhatsApp or the Telegram or whatever group that the club uses. I think it's a good question. I think it's something that everyone faces because there's always a lot of lurkers and there's always a lot of people that are there, and you might not always know that people are reading the messages, even in cases where they actually are. I know I've noticed this. It's like, people will message me and they'll say like, oh, it's a great conversation in the chat. Here's what I think about it. Like, post it in the chat then, because they just message me about things, or they message people about things, right? So I think, it's kind of like having sheep. No, that was bad. Because you have to herd them, right? You have to encourage posting in the chat. I think of like the Reddit example, and how Reddit started was that when they first made the subreddits, it was initially just the employees talking to each other. So, definitely rely on the leaders, because it's very difficult to convince the community to just start using a chat, but you can get the leaders to just start posting in the chat and just talking to each other in the chat. And, I think that's an important piece, because at the end of the day, like if you, and to post useful stuff too, not just like, oh, you got a 1 article a day quota, but like actually stuff that they're interested in, and to actually talk to each other. Because at the end of the day, if the leaders don't use the chat, then it's not a valuable chat. Like if they're not getting the value from it, just talking to each other through that chat, then, it's no one else will find value from it. But once you start posting, and once you start, like, even if it's just conversations back and forth between two people, once people see, I think the biggest thing for what makes someone want to post in a certain Slack over another Slack, or post in a Telegram over another Telegram, is if they feel like what they post will be heard and get a comment or get a response. So if they see other people doing it, and they see other people that are posting, and then they see that there's actually people responding and there's actually conversations being engaged, then they're more willing to post themselves. And so that's what we've seen. In terms of platform wise, like we switched from Slack to Discord, and now we have a Discord/WhatsApp. And the WhatsApp is definitely more active because people are more likely to have WhatsApp already installed on their phone, whereas Slack or Discord is like a new app that they have to download. So, consider that, like, what platform is it on? Because maybe there's a platform that students are more likely to have. I feel like not really many people outside of the crypto space have Telegram already installed. So that's why we don't really do the Telegram. Like we have the WhatsApp because that's mostly what everyone already has. There are other issues though, is like WhatsApp is Facebook owned, and we want to move away from that. And you also have to share your phone number, which is a big privacy leak that, we're trying to push more students to use the Discord and to be on the Ben Discord. But then it comes back to, that's students don't already have it on their phone. They don't already have it a habit. They don't already have the habit of checking the Discord. So it's definitely a process. It's just about, it starts with the leaders posting and talking to each other and using it. Even if it's not like they're in the habit of it, just ask them as like a favor to start using it and to start posting in it, but to do it in a way that they get value from it, like share articles that they actually care about, and share resources and questions that they actually care about, and then start encouraging other people to share it. And you might feel like you're being overbearing because you're telling people like, oh, posting this, but at the end of the day, like, once that habit is built up, it just happens naturally, and it ends up having much, much better conversations. Like previously, I have to tell people a lot of times, like they'll come together and say like, Eric, we started a chat group between all of the club leaders in this region, and it was really difficult to reach out and find everyone and get all their emails and get all the stuff. And then it's always, oh, I mean, they're already in the Ben chat. Like, did you notice that? And they're like, oh, wait, what? Like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And then I list off all the people, and it's like, oh my God. So you don't know like who's in the chat, which is another thing. Is like, we're trying to make it clear like who's in the chat and like how many students are there. So, if you have membership records and students are willing to share their information, that could be good, a membership directory. We don't personally keep one because of like privacy reasons, but I feel like if it's internally within a club, I know some clubs keep a membership directory of like emails you can reach out to for help and support and what everyone's interested in. So that could be a good strategy to help spur more engagement. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's about like what the students want. Like if they value a chat, then they value the chat. If not, then, maybe just focusing on the newsletter and the mailing list. And that it's more of a one-way communication between you and them, but they're still getting the value that they would want out of it.
Mm-hmm. I guess like my 2 cents on that are like I'm imagining, Ishan, you're talking specifically about like your internal Slack, like all the members in your organization, correct? Um, so I would think about this in like 3 main ways. Wait, am I correct in assuming that,
Yeah,
Ishan?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So one, I think a great way to jumpstart a community, like from the scratch, is to initially have kind of like moderators, kind of like what Eric was saying. Like, when your leadership is using the Slack extensively, other people will follow. So in the beginning, maybe you can have like a duty for one of your officers. It's more casual. It's not like an actual duty, but it's more just like someone who's like supposed to be the one who answers like beginner questions. So you make sure that everyone gets a response, everyone has engagement, or you just like tell your leadership team to lead by example. The second thing is transparency. I think with the ethos of the blockchain space and all this like trustlessness and like transparency and things like that, and also like kind of the ethos behind open source in general, I think it would be awesome if you could, if possible, make all of your like decisions as an executive board or leadership committee, make them all public, right? Like having a public hashtag officers channel on Slack, something like that, so that people feel like, okay, they're seeing the decisions being made and they don't feel like everything's happening in like private messages and DMs. And if you actually go on like Slack or whatever platform you're using, most of the time you can see analytics and see whether most of your conversations are happening in DM or in public channels. And in my opinion, I think they should mostly be on public channels because then everyone has access to them. And I think the more they see people posting, the more they feel like they can give their opinions and have a say in the way the org is going. And then the last thing is actually someone I interviewed recently for a She256 volunteer position. She said this when I asked her about what she thinks her ideal community is, and I think it was such a great response that I wanted to share it with you guys. I have it in front of me. She said, "I think that a successful community is one where people don't just go there when they're in need. It's one that they go to when they also have something to give back." And so this kind of goes into this culture of inclusivity. I think if you give people a reason for like they feel like they owe something to the org and to the progeny, I think that's important. So for example, having close connections with your alumni, I'm not sure how new your organization is or whether you have alumni, but for us at least, we established like this Blockchain at Berkeley Alumni Association. And it's not like incredibly active or anything, but it is nice to have one place where everyone's at, where everyone can kind of post about blockchain related things. And there's definitely ways you can iterate on this, but having a place where maybe like people can post jobs, that's a great way that I think people stay engaged. Or like intros, like if leadership is, or anyone in the space is super down to like provide an intro, a warm intro to someone, to a different project or to a VC fund, I think people are down to continue using it. So it's kind of this cycle of giving back, I think, that you should try to emulate in like from the beginning.
Yeah, this has all been really, really helpful. One last little thing, this is like a tiny little detail, is just drop an emote. When you see something that you like, just throw a little like thumbs up or rocket ship or, you know, hands to the sky, one of those. And it just shows that, you know, there is community there. So if you are a lurker on one of these channels, these are really small things that you can do in order to sort of boost the community. And I'd like to address, does anyone have any other points around this question? Because I'd like to sort of hop to the next one if possible.
The gifts.
Yeah. No, the saddest thing is when you post something and don't like have a reaction.
That's
so
what I'm saying with the lurking is like, and then they DM you and then they give you their opinion and they like tell you that they saw it and you're like, make it known. Like I agree. Most of it is in the DM. And our goal, right? That's why you shouldn't feel bad about kind of pushing people in that direction. Is the goal is to move from the majority being DMs into the public chat so that other people can see and then people know that there is that community. So, you know, that's an important piece.
Yeah, so I'd like to, Sebastian, I don't know if you're around, but I noticed that you posted a question here. You said, how do we do that during COVID? I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I'd love to, you know,
yeah, sorry, I could probably give some more context. So our club is kind of like, I don't want to say it's totally new because it's old, but where it kind of went through a transition where when it started, it had a pretty solid crowd, but then like the recruiting didn't as much happen, and now they all graduated, and it's like it's as if the club had just started, if that makes sense. And so
yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, okay. And thank you. Yeah, and so what we're kind of dealing with right now is we're trying to figure out, you know, how do we engage new freshmen if we just have the Discord, right? And when I was saying this sounds opposite, I was talking about the, the social things, right? Because like, and in a different org that I've been on for a longer part of my time in college, like we will go to team dinners, or we'll go to like some random thing together, right?
So I have a couple suggestions. So one, definitely make sure you have a plan. So people will come to you if you have a plan that they're willing to follow. So your mission clearly described and a vision clearly described, and like make sure that you are very sort of transparent about what your organization does. Everyone's going to be looking for stuff to do, especially freshmen. They're going to school. They're not, you can't meet in person. They still want to make friends. So run weekly meetups. Make sure you got a plan. Leverage the resources of your school. So send an email out to everybody in the departments that that sort of correlate with blockchain. That being like fintech, economics,
of course.
Computer science.
That's
design.
Something that we have to do, because right now we just have a bunch of CS and CE students, and at least at Carnegie Mellon, it's very, very siloed. So like I actually personally don't know any design students like at all, even though CMU has like a pretty well-known design school. So like So reaching out to them,
so just reach out.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I will absolutely be doing that. It's just, like if we can get them to come, because the other thing about orgs here is that there's no application process. It's just like you just go to them. So it's really easy to get a lot of people who will just like come to a meeting, sign up for the org, and then just like never come. Again, it's almost like lurking, but it's like in the same fashion. So I'm just trying to get as much input on how do you make the engagement actually happen?
It starts with a clear call to action, but Meta, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's also interesting, like maybe you can talk to some of the other people that are on this call and see like, your highest performing members, like why are they involved in your org, right? Like out of maybe an org of 50 people, I would say like 10 people are ones you can like really rely on. And how do you get that number to the entire 50? So I think one thing I noticed. Okay, awesome. Yeah. No, I think in the past, like for me, I personally found a lot of value through two things. One was like leadership ability. I think I learned a lot about how to manage a team. So I was like really involved in the consulting department specifically. And I basically got to like lead a team of like 5 to 7 engineers and 1 to 2 business consultants to build out like a proof of concept. And that taught me a lot of soft skills, so I was a CS major and I just didn't get those soft skills in my courses. So that was a great way for me to learn how to be a project manager, how to be a PM in the future, and also just in general, like amp up your team to really build out a project, scope it out, and then see it from start to finish and talk to clients. So that was that. Another thing I got was, actually I got 3 things. So that was one. The second one is kind of like a brand almost. Not that I have a brand, but more like I got to kind of see a lot of different people and different stakeholders in the blockchain space. So I got to interact with a lot of people that are in roles that I wanted to be in. So either like software engineers or maybe like founders or maybe fund managers, investment partners, and people like that. And I think for me, I loved the industry connections. I know for a lot of people, they like research, but for me, I loved being able to like see the ecosystem and what people are working on. So having an external facing role for me was really important. Like I would be the ones talking to clients and like sourcing them and all of that. And then the last thing I got was so initially I joined the organization as a developer, and I got a lot out of that. Like I think most courses, if you're a CS major, are very theoretical in most colleges, but through my work at Blockchain at Berkeley, I really figured out how to like build an application that works for a client and like stuff that you don't really learn in class necessarily. And so a lot of people feel the same way. They felt like they got an internship out of it, even though they were like working their asses off for free. So that was definitely one thing. But yeah, I think it's different for every organization. I know other clubs like are research focused, so maybe that's what they got out of it. And maybe Maggie, you can speak to like what you got out of it.
I just want to make sure I'm like understanding the sentiment that you're like conveying. Is it's more based on like, just do things that like whoever you get, understand what they want and then give them what they want.
Yeah, totally. Like for example, like we didn't have an R&D department for a while, but then there was a huge appetite for it. So then a new member just kind of like recreated it and jump started it, and then kind of made 3 different open source projects that people could contribute on. But then like 2 semesters later, like people weren't really interested in that. They were more interested in consulting. So it kind of just, it's like bubbles, you know, like they expand and contract based on like the churn. Because the problem with college organizations are that there is going to be a churn every 3 to 4 years when people graduate.
Yeah, no, I'm well used to that.
So that's, yeah, so I think that was definitely the hardest part. But I think that's where the culture piece comes in. If you have a really solid culture from the beginning, then it kind of trickles down every semester when you recruit.
Yeah, 2 points to that. So the with regards to the alumni, yeah, as Meta mentioned, these clubs we've seen, there's such a high turnover rate. Like every 4 years, the entire organization looks completely different. MBA clubs, every 2 years, the entire organization is completely different. We have some clubs, the Harvard Grad School of Education Blockchain Club, lasted 1 year because they have a 1-year program. And so they came, it's like they started up and then they left. And it's like literally there's no way to pass on that knowledge, except for organizations like She256, Bath and Ben, that has all of these club alumni in leadership positions that, we're the glue that kind of keeps track of the history and can keep, passing it on. Are you with the CMU blockchain club?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, yeah. Don't let the alumni off the hook so easy. Like Philip and Tyler should still be very
involved. Yeah, no, totally. I actually, so to be completely honest, I actually joined. I actually only joined the group during COVID, so I'm actually very new to the group. Well, I'm actually still kind of new to blockchain to an extent. I only joined in February. I learned a lot in that time, just because, I wasn't really doing anything besides joining project Discords. Like, oh my God, all these startups have Discords. I can literally just like talk to the founder if I have a question about their protocol. Like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. So like, I learned everything just by talking to everyone. Yeah. And that was really cool. And that's why, like, that's why I joined CMU Blockchain, and I want to bring more students into this, because, all I see are in my surroundings people freaking out about exams or interviews with some FANG company, right? That's all they want. Or that's all everyone is like constantly stressing and focusing on. I just want to like, hey, like there's this cool world here where you can use your tech for good, and then also like actually meet cool people.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
instead of just like feed a toxic ecosystem.
Yeah. So if you find yourself in a leadership position and the alumni are gone, or the old leaders have already left or graduated, and you're not so sure about the history, reach out to us and let us know. If you don't know how to track down your alumni or know how to track down the club history, then we can help with that, and we can help.
No, totally. Yeah, I know how to get to the alumni, just because there's one person who is in both phases, so I can talk to him. But thank you for that point, though, because I did not think of
and also
the alumni.
Yeah, and then the value add for the students is, I mentioned this earlier, but it's really, really important. Like, what our consideration is that we want to move past, us personally, that we want to move past the idea of blockchain just being a hobby that students do in their free time, but actually show it and present it in a way that there is potential to get a career in blockchain, to get a job in blockchain. Because I feel like for a lot of students, when you have very limited time on campus and you have all these clubs vying for attention, you have your set of clubs that you join for the hobbies and for the fun, and you have your set of clubs that you pick for your career. And if it's a choice between, the business club, the entrepreneurship club, or the blockchain club, a lot of students might gravitate towards, well, I'm going to join the business club and the entrepreneurship club because there I know that I can get placed with internships, I can get like the job experience, I can have my future be secure. So we really want to present and encourage clubs to make that presentation of, we have an extensive life, not just like our own club and our own history.
Yeah.
All of these intercollegiate we were a part of.
Totally. I totally understand. Yeah, that was actually my first thing because this guy was like, hey, we actually need to like refigure out how to run a club again. So I was like, okay, I'll try to help do this. And yeah, so that's one thing I have been doing, is like, reaching out to random companies. A lot of them were actually just people who taught me random things. It's like, hey, let's reach out to the guy who taught me how digital signatures work, or let's reach out to the guy, you know what I mean? And then like, doing things that way. But now that I've gotten more connected with y'all, I will absolutely be reaching out for more stuff.
And you can bring back the the alumni of other clubs too. Like all of these alumni have created awesome things like Blockchain to Berkeley alumni, Ben alumni, University of Michigan alumni. I like going through alumni because, you know, you bring on a company, like a random company, like it's good because it's, you know, blockchain definitely exposure, but there's so many alumni that are working on so many interesting projects from all of the different clubs that, and they're more likely to be willing to help out because they went through the same experience of being a student, starting their company, sometimes as a student. So they're definitely the best perspectives to get, and they're the most approachable because you can get the intros and reach out to them through these networks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, emphasize that there's a lot of money in blockchain too, by the way. You know, like these people, they want high paying jobs. These jobs are relatively high paying. So I think that's a pretty attractive, you know, feature.
Yeah, the Solidity developers and even blockchain community managers. Like I think since a lot of crypto companies are community based, or they are platforms that they want other people to build on, they're very focused on growing community. Whereas if you went and go work for a B2B or a B2B company, right, like an enterprise company, then your role would be more like pitching to other companies. But I feel like a lot of blockchain companies are very community oriented and platforms, open platforms for people to build on. Ishan, why do you feel like this is an attack? I don't follow.
I was referring to Cameron saying people want lots of money, just as a joke.
Oh, you're in it for the money? I think we're all kind of the same.
No, as a business student, sometimes people are like, "Oh, you just want money, don't you?" So I was joking.
I mean, look, I mean, that was the thing. That was a big thing in 2017 with the MIT Bitcoin Club. So many people came to the MIT Bitcoin Club, and it really pissed me off because we would literally have people from like just random people from Boston like show up, or even like MBA students from HBS like come, and they would come up to me at the end of the session and be like, "Hey, listen, you're an HBS student with their ascots. Listen, I don't, you know, you just tell me when the networking is going to be, and I'll come for the networking because I had to come here and I had to sit through the thing. And no, I just want, like, dude, go away. Like, no, it was so annoying. So that's a thing, right? It's, you do want to find people that are in it to stay and in it for the community and they care about meeting people, not just the people that are, oh, I'm looking for a CTO. Let me try to recruit a student and then give them a really low equity offer they don't understand. So it's up to us as like the older leaders and the club leaders to kind of filter that out and help students understand, make sure they don't get into anything that they don't understand, right? Especially with startups.
Yeah, and lots of scammy projects out there too. So be wary. But we are coming up to an hour and a half. Meta, are you going to say something? You're muted if so. Typing away. Can't unmute. No. It says you need to turn on. You asked the speaker to turn on the microphone. All right, sad. Sorry, Meta. If you want to, I can verbally say your message if you want to type it. But we are coming up to about an hour and a half. There's about 10 people in here. We're going to move on to the networking portion. Just to keep everyone, let everyone know, we run these events every single week. So if your club doesn't necessarily want to run an event, but you want to run an event for them and don't want to source a speaker, like I'm trying to crowdsource all this stuff. So I don't have to do as much of the work. And so you guys get the opportunity to come and speak to really cool companies. Ishan next week is me talking to Microsoft and be talking about how, I guess, the blockchain gaming royalties work on Xbox. Yes, all right. Contact Meta on Twitter. Super passionate about DeFi and diversity and inclusion. We'll have to speak to orgs, recruit more women in, and URM. Can someone tell me what URM means? I'm sorry, I'm kind of ignorant.
Underrepresented minority.
Beautiful. So for those who did not know what URM means, including myself, underrepresented minorities. That is one of the great things I learned today. So thank you everybody for hopping on, and we'll be hopping in the networking portion. Let us know if you need anything. Eric, if you want to drop any messages in the chat or links to anything, please do so. And thank you all. Thank you, Meta. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Eric.
Question. Where should we link these slides?
You can send them to the email that we were all sort of communicating in.
Okay, cool.
Dope. All right, everybody. Thank you. See ya.